It's me. I'm trying to live stream in, but it's acting up.
Well, at least you can hear us.
We can hear you too.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the Public Service Commission meeting of March 29th, 2023. Before we get started on the agenda, I will ask one thing, please. Could we all stand for a minute of silence for Nashville? Thank you all. And one more item before we get started on the agenda. I have a certificate of service for Lisa Driggins for 10-year service. And the pin. 10 years passes quickly. Thank you, so over here, turn.
Wait.
Stay rolling.
No, over here. Lisa.
Wait.
Lisa, over here, please.
Yeah,
Okay.
center stage.
Oh,
Reenact.
yeah, reenact, okay.
Right,
Hold,
Commissioner Conaway.
hold.
Look at me, Commissioner.
I'm gonna look at you.
Okay.
Look at her.
Thanks. You don't have to post that, by the way.
All right.
It's in the newsletter.
We have the minutes of the meeting of March 8th, 2023. Are there any corrections or additions? There being none, may I have a motion, please?
I move that we adopt the minutes of March 8th. as
I
submitted.
second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Commissioner,
Aye.
and aye. All right. We have a consent agenda. Does anybody want anything removed from the consent agenda or have questions about the consent agenda? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Acting Chair, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. No questions on the motion. All those in favor,
Say aye.
please say aye. Commissioner Winslow? Commissioner Gray?
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler?
Aye.
Aye from Dallas.
Thank you. Commissioner Correa?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion passes. All right, on the regular agenda, there is nothing. No hearing scheduled. Are there any members of the public who would like to make comment? There being none, administrative matters.
Madam Acting Chair, just a point of clarification. I think on the minutes, Chairman Winslow should have abstained since I don't think he was here last meeting.
Yeah, he was not there.
He was not on the phone last meeting. All right.
That's correct. I'm sorry. I should have abstained.
So we'll make that correction.
Thank you.
So the first matter under Director's comments is,
Bring your microphone in, please.
Yeah, bring your mic.
first matter under Director's comments is a presentation from Delmarva regarding the Infrastructure and Jobs Act grant application that we discussed last meeting. So if Jake Sneeden could come up and present that, I'd appreciate it.
All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Jake Sneeden with Delmarva Power. Thanks for the opportunity to come back and present to you on our application that we'll be submitting next week for the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act grant. If you could go to the next slide, please. So I'll start just giving you a high-level sort of background on IIJA, and then we'll dive into the specific application itself. IIJA was signed into law by President Biden in 2022. I think most folks have a lot of the background on this, but one thing I wanted to highlight from the Biden administration is their Justice 40 initiative, which seeks to ensure that 40% of the investments that are coming through efforts like IIJA are directed towards disadvantaged communities. And so this was an important factor in developing our grant application, so I just wanted to flag that up front. The particular grant we're seeking is under the Department of Energy's Grid Infrastructure or Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnership. And so we submitted a concept paper late last year. We got a letter from the Department of Energy, a letter of encouragement from the Department of Energy earlier this year. We've prepared our application. We plan to submit it next week on April 4th. It's due by the 6th. And we're here today to really ask for a letter of support from the Public Service Commission to include in our application next week. Next slide, please. So at a high level, I'll talk about our projects and the benefits, and then I'll get into the details of the three sort of components of the application. At a high level, this is really geared towards storm resiliency in Delaware by undergrounding and upgrading our distribution system to improve community resiliency. There are three projects that fit under here. One is the rear lot conversions to underground, which we spoke a lot about at the last meeting. The second component is upgrading underground residential distribution. And then the third component is upgrading the underground system in Wilmington. And so together, those three components make up our entire application. In total, the work, it costs around $84 million. We are seeking $42 million in federal funding, and then Delmarva Power would fund $42 million as well. There's a one-to-one match requirement from the DOE for going after this grant application. In looking at the projects that we selected, there were two principles that were really important to us. One was the reliability data, so identifying projects that we knew would get at outages that we have on our system and enhance reliability for our customers. And then the second component was using that Justice 40 data and the Justice 40 requirements from DOE to help us identify the project. So combining those two sets of data to help us select the projects for this application. If we do receive the grant, we expect to start work on this project at the end of this year, and it would be a 5-year project lasting until Q3 of 2028. Looking at just sort of the benefits at a high level, I think we've touched on the reliability and resiliency. I'll provide a little bit more data on that on the subsequent slides. But I did want to highlight some of the economic benefits. So Commissioner Drexler, last meeting you had asked about jobs. This is going to generate 688 jobs and contract jobs. It's important for us that these jobs are also coming out of disadvantaged communities. So we're going to leverage our current workforce development programs to try and help fill these jobs. We have some great partnerships in the community. We have active programs, so we think this is a great opportunity to find work for folks who are coming out of our underserved communities and provide them careers in the energy industry, which is an exciting opportunity for us. The other equity piece that we're hyper-focused on is the supplier diversity program that we have in place. And so, Delmarva's commitment is to look for 40% of our contracts to go to minority and diverse businesses in our service area. And we'll continue to leverage that program as we award contracts for any work that comes through IIJA. We'll go on to the next slide, please. So just getting into the specifics of the projects themselves, first looking at the rear lot infrastructure to front lot underground program. So this is current work that we do have happening on our system today. the grant funding really helps us accelerate that work and fund some of it. Currently, we have about 250 miles of rear lot overhead. This program is going to allow us to convert about 40 miles, is going to target converting 40 miles of that and bringing it to the front of the customer's property and undergrounding it, which creates significant resilience and reliability benefits. We're not getting tree-related outages during storms. We're not getting animal-related outages. And then when we do have to access the equipment, it's much easier to get at it in the front of a customer's property than behind. So significant benefits from that program. The second, the URD cable replacement. So this is replacing aging equipment that is underground already, but it's starting to fail given its age. We're targeting to upgrade about 100 miles as part of this program. And we're already starting to see those impacts on our system, so this is an important program to continue to accelerate. And then finally, the Wilmington Underground replacement. We're targeting to upgrade 10 miles of existing infrastructure there that dates back to the 1950s. We're starting to see failures, and so this is an important investment to make as well to upgrade for resiliency and reliability. Going on to the next slide, sort of get into the location questions that we were getting at the previous meeting. So as you can see from the map here, the bulk of the projects, like I mentioned in the previous meeting, are going to be in Newcastle County. There are a few URD projects, so that's the underground residential distribution upgrades. There are a few of those in Sussex and Kent County, but primarily the work is in Newcastle County. So the map on the right side of your screen is just a zoom. It's same projects, just zoomed in on Newcastle County to give you a little better sense of where they are. The one thing I'll highlight, obviously the folks who are going to benefit from the reliability and resiliency are the ones who live in these communities, but the overall cost savings and the reduced bill impact from the federal funding is something that all customers will benefit from. The next slide just highlights the project location specifically. I think we were asked for a list of where they are. So this list is located on this slide. We did call out which communities actually fall under DOE's disadvantaged community definition. So we have 4 disadvantaged communities benefiting from the rear lot work, 2 benefiting from the URD work, and then all of the Wilmington underground work is considered in a disadvantaged community. And this aligns with the Justice 40 principles of getting 40% of our project spend directed towards disadvantaged communities across our service area. The next slide touches on reliability benefits a little bit more specifically. So I just wanted to highlight a few things. One, these projects are shovel ready, which is really important for DOE. That's what they're looking for. And so since we have this work underway on our system already, it's easy for us to ramp up if we were to receive the grant and execute in the timeline that we've stipulated in the application. So that's an important component that we've highlighted in our application. The second is we believe we have really compelling reliability data that makes these projects stand out. On the rear lot to overhead, the communities that we're targeting for this work experience about 55 outages per year, and those outages last 6 hours, which is significantly longer than the 100 minutes our typical customer experiences when they have an outage. So really compelling reliability data for that project, and same goes for the URD work. Those communities that we're targeting, they experience about 33 outages per year based on having failed underground equipment, and those outages last over 6 hours long, so significantly longer than the typical 100 minutes as well. And then on the Wilmington front, this really accelerates work and helps us avoid repair and maintenance costs that we'd otherwise have to invest in. And it supports economic development in downtown Wilmington, which is an economic opportunity zone as designated by the state. So we're meeting those state goals of investing in the infrastructure in Wilmington and helping sustain businesses there as well as the broader community. Next slide, please. We also received the question about stakeholder engagement that we've done and other letters of support. So this slide highlights the letters of support that we have received or expect to receive to include in our application. We have done additional outreach beyond what's on this list, but these are the folks who we actually asked for a letter of support. I'll highlight that the most important here are the community organizations. Those are the ones that DOE is really looking for in the application. So our external affairs team has done a good job at targeting those organizations and that these projects make sense for, and bringing them in to support or commit some level of support, whether it's workforce development training or support for the project's reliability and resiliency goals. And the final slide just talks about next steps. So as I mentioned, we'll be looking to submit the application next week to DOE. And then we hope to hear from DOE either later this spring or early this summer on the outcome. It is very competitive. While the letters of encouragement cut it down from, I think about 500 to 600 applications in half. There are only a certain amount of grant slots, I think, less than a dozen. So it is very competitive for us. And so I just want to set that expectation out there. The other thing to highlight, this is just the first solicitation that DOE has put out there that utilities were eligible for. We expect that there will be more, and we're going to be monitoring those. And as we see opportunities that make sense for Delmarva Power and utilities are eligible, we'll certainly be going after that funding. And so I hope to be back in front of you in the near future talking about another program that we've identified based on the solicitations that come out from DOE. With that, I'll say thank you for your time and consideration and see if there are any questions.
Questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Go ahead, Chairman.
If I could, please, the Department of Energy has put out a needs list for the Middle Atlantic region, and I'm wondering how much from that you have used to build your case for the infrastructure you're going to put in. And secondly, what sort of coordination, if any, was made with the application from Maryland vis-a-vis the Mid-Atlantic region for PJM?
So I don't have any information in front of me on the Mid-Atlantic needs list. It might be separate from their IIJA GRIP funding, so I'll have to look into that and get back to you, Chairman.
Commissioner Gray?
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you also, Mr. Sneeden, for bringing this information back. It's helpful. I do have a couple of questions. And forgive me because I didn't bring my glasses. I'm looking through a pair of lenses loaned by my partner here. So, on your project overview where you mentioned $42 million will be funded, I think you said by Delmarva, yeah?
Correct.
First question is this $42 million already in DPL's infrastructure plans, or is this a new $42 million that's the commission is endorsing with our letter of recommendation?
The letter of recommendation does not endorse the funding or commit the commission to approving any of the funding. So the funding for us we would come back and seek it through either a base rate case or through my mind escapes me, our DSIC.
So if I understood you correctly, then this $42 million that Delmarva envisions applying to this project has not yet already been approved within an infrastructure plan that Delmarva has presented to the commission.
It is not that the commission has approved. It is some of this work is in our ISR, which we'll be submitting at the end of this month. Not something that the commission approves, but something the commission acknowledges receipt of. And so the work that is envisioned in all three buckets is in there, but not at the same level as if we were to get the funding from DOE. So we would have to go back and increase and accelerate some of that work if we were to get this funding.
Okay. I think I understand. You'll have to come back to the commission to get the $42 million.
Right, to recover it, yep.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Sneeden. And I have a question that dovetails off of Commissioner Gray's question, and that is the funding, the $42 million to be approved, to be sought. That's over, the scope or term of the project is through 2028. So that that would be spread over that 5-year term, is that correct?
Correct.
So
Yep.
approximately 8 million per year.
Yep, I think you could look at it that way, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Commissioner Correa?
Money coming in from Washington is a great news, always. But also wanted to find out, the 1 in a million chance if you don't get the money, will you maintain or will Delmarva maintain the same schedule for replacement of these areas, utility services or investment? Same or it will be lengthened to 2035 or what have you?
Correct. We'll maintain what we currently have in our plans. I think I failed to highlight on one of the slides sort of what the acceleration looks like. So what does that IIJA funding actually allow us to do? And really, when you look at it, it's the additional 40 miles of URD over what our plan has. It's 7 additional rear lot conversions over what our current plan has in 5 years. And then an additional, and the 10 million of the Wilmington Underground is additional beyond what we have in our plans currently.
Thank you.
Madam Acting Chair,
Yes.
I have 2 other questions, please.
Okay.
So on your project locations slide, I'm curious, are these specific deployments fixed if your grant is awarded? Or can Delmarva adjust these if you get awarded the grant? Will the grant be audited against these locations?
I would have to check that. I don't have the answer.
Okay, and the reason I ask is because familiar with Wilmington, and most of the Wilmington undergrounding that is listed here is principally the downtown or riverfront area. I'm not sure much of it is designed to benefit neighborhoods. And so if this is flexible to the extent that you can go where you're fulfilling your goals and you don't have to fix this as an audit for the program, I would welcome additional conversation about other areas in the city where residents could benefit more. This is more of an economic development benefit for the city, and I don't object to that, and I would support getting the grant. But if you're flexible enough to have further conversations, I would welcome that we do that.
Yeah,
And one other point on this same project locations where you have the rear lot for the projects, none of those are in the city, it looks like to me. Just the Wilmington on the right-hand side. So I make that point. I'll let you now comment, and I have one last question. Go ahead.
okay. So on the Wilmington Underground piece, so that component of the project is designed to upgrade the existing underground system, which we're starting to see failures with in the city. And so that's based on, failing manholes, our inspections of some of that equipment. And so we do feel a strong need to keep that investment in that portion of the city, given the state of the equipment.
Yeah.
But I do hear your point that it's not getting at the residential piece. I will take that feedback back to the team. I know they did analyze outage data for our rear lots and identified the ones that were had the most significant. But again, I think we can take that back and double check and make sure. And if there are ones we missed, then we should certainly bring that up, especially given that the Wilmington community is considered a disadvantaged community. We should be accelerating that work there per the standard that we use to evaluate the projects.
Okay, it's not a deal breaker for my support getting the grant money. It's just a consideration as to whether you become fixed if you get the award. So, and the last question I have is, as I read through some of the conversion from overhead to underground, I think you mentioned pad transformers will need to be deployed. My question is, who will have authority or be the arbiter to decide where the pad transformer siting is located?
So typically our process for these projects is we do have to do community outreach and work with either the broader neighborhood, if there's an association we can work with, and as well as typically the property owners for each property. And we have been historically able to do that pretty amicably. We are typically flexible on where we can put it so that it meets the reliability needs of the project but minimizes the impact to the community. So typically that's led by our governmental and external affairs team and identifying the siting and working with the community to
point I'd like to just understand is you're not in a position to actually acquire a piece of someone's private property to deploy a pad transformer.
Not that I'm aware of, but we will have to get easements for this project to underground it.
Okay. Madam Acting Chair, no further questions. Thank you very much. Good presentation.
You okay? You have another question? All right. The Public Advocate's Office, Ms. Price, do you have any questions?
Are you on mute?
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
So,
Do we vote on support, I'm sorry, Madam
Support
Acting Chair, do
letter.
we support the letter, or we just
Yeah.
take a vote? Yes.
yes,
Yes.
please. And
I move that we approve the letter that Dallas has presented for approval.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Madam Chair, sorry.
Yes.
Can we discuss it for just a moment?
Sure.
Yes, I have a couple of comments. I have some edits for the chair's letter. Some of them are pretty basic. For example, the letter needs a date. I mean, there are a couple of things after the fact. If the chair doesn't mind, I'd like to have the flexibilities to